small business, I'm sorry, get my notes here today. Christina is the Managing Director of Community Development and Small Business Services. So Christina, welcome. Thanks for being with us today to talk about the NJEDA Small Business Emergency Assistance Grant Program Phase 4. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So you've been with us many times. Thank you so much for always reaching out, trying to make all these great programs available with information for our business community. And we really appreciate it. I'd like to just ask everyone if you have questions as we go through the program, you can feel free to put those in the chat. Christina has one of her associates, Rachel, who is going to be answering questions in real time as we go through the program. And then we will also take questions at the end of the program using the raised hand feature for anything that has not been already addressed. So we will, I think, go ahead, proceed with the program. Christina, I think you have, you can go ahead and share the screen and take it away.
Give me 1 second. I'm sorry, I pulled up the wrong presentation.
No problem.
Yeah, I had it in a PDF instead of the. Rachel, do you have the slides by any chance in the PowerPoint version?
I do. Give me 1 second to pull it up. All right, do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, if you can. Sorry. Thank
Okay.
you.
No problem.
Sorry about that, folks.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. If you can just get me through first. You can advance. Yeah, thank you. So thank you, everyone. Sorry about that. You know, as was mentioned before, so I'm Managing Director of Community Development, Small Business Services. And, you know, since the beginning of the pandemic, EDA has put out pretty much, you know, a wide variety of any kind of grants and programs that's available to business owners. And especially really focusing on the micros and small businesses too throughout the state. So, you know, we still have our PPE grant program as well that's live and active for anyone who may need some type of equipment. If you're a daycare owner, if you need to, you know, still do anything around sanitizing, you can still get that grant program. And I highly recommend anyone kind of pursue that because it's a huge discount on the products and services that are going to be around your business. So we also had various loan products as well too, and then also offered SBA service. We still have our sustain and serve, and then ideally with more federal funding coming down throughout the year, we'll probably be doing various programs and also supplementing these as well too. So there's probably more to come in the upcoming year as well too. If I can have the next slide, Rachel. So to highlight this phase 4, very similar to phase 3. For people who basically, if they didn't, you know, if you fall into these different buckets, essentially, like similar to the phase 3 grant too. So it's still focused on your full-time employees, and you would have to have less than 50 full-time employees. We're looking at your last 8 quarters of your WR30 that you would have filed. And so we're going to look at your highest quarter so you can get the maximized grant award as well too. But this is 85 million with a 33% set aside for opportunity zones. So if you fall into those census tracts, you just get automatically funneled into that set aside. It's nothing that you have to do separately. It's all tracked from the back end through IT on our end. So don't worry about that. It's just highlighting to people that are in those OZs. Again, the maximum award would be 20,000, and we have different buckets: restaurants, childcare, micro businesses, and a micro business is sole props who have no employees and then no more than 5 full-time employees based on the last WR30, that would be your highest amount in those last 8 quarters. And then we have the all other businesses as well too. So as you can see, 35 million is going to restaurants, 10 million to childcare, 25 million to micro businesses, 15 million to all other businesses. Pre-registration is step 1 that's got to be done before 5 p.m. on April 29th. I can't emphasize that enough. Pre-registration was not first come, first serve. Whoever did it on the 19th versus the 29th, it doesn't put you in a queue anywhere else. So there's no difference to that. You know, you just got to get it done, and you can't wait until 4:59 to do it, right? So it's got to be done before 5 p.m. on April 29th. That's the most important part. And then we'll highlight the second part, which will be application day. So if I could have the next slide, please. So this is where we're going to talk about application day, which is step 2. So you want to make sure that you're going to be ready to go, because application day will be first come, first serve. So you're going to have to be, you know, all the documents you'll be able to see after pre-registration closes. We're going to post the application so you can see what those questions will look like. You can make sure you have all the necessary answers. I highly recommend you print it out. You make sure you have them filled out so you know what you would be inputting on that day as well too. So this way you can just do your homework ahead of time. So when application day comes, it's less stressful for you as well too. For any entity who did not receive phase 3 funding, whether you applied and were denied, or you applied and maybe didn't respond to emails and so you missed your opportunity, you can apply on May 3rd at 9 a.m. to fall into that window. We're giving people who didn't have access to that funding under phase 3 first availability. So it would be May 3rd. All the other entities that fell into the different buckets, essentially, then that's when you're going to look at, you know, May 5th would be restaurants and childcare at 9 a.m. May 10th is micro businesses. May 12th is all the other businesses that fall into that 6 full-time employees and up to no more than 50 full-time employees. All this information, again, pre-registration, there's videos, there's FAQs in like 10 different languages. There's any kind of possible resource is on this business.nj.gov. And there's also a chat bot too that can answer your instant questions. So if there's something you come across when we post that application, it's confusing, you don't understand what it actually means, you can ask that question right there in that chat bot, or you can call our customer care as well too to clarify it. Again, you're going to want to do this before application day. Please don't wait till the last minute to do that. Next slide. This just kind of walks you through, you know, if you have questions and like what day you should actually be applying, helps you kind of, if you're a visual person, it'll help you through, you know, go through that flow chart process essentially. Next slide. So again, we're just going to highlight basically 5 or fewer employees for restaurants. You qualify for 10,000, 6 to 25 employees, 15,000, 26 to 50 would be 20,000. Everyone would have to have the NAICS code related to the food and service and drinking places industry. So that's a 722 it would have to start with. You would have to have a physical location in New Jersey, registered to do business in the state, in good standing with the state as well too, especially with the Department of Labor, taxation, and then you have to get through the legal department questionnaire as well. Demonstrate your negative impact of emergency related to COVID, obviously, and then the intent not to lay off employees as well too. And there's 35 million that's set aside currently, and then each bucket has a 33% set aside as well too related to this. And then the next slide. So for childcare providers, that would be anyone with this specific NAICS code of 624410. Again, a location in New Jersey, registered to do business, in good standing with taxation, Department of Labor, and getting through your legal department questions and demonstrating your negative impact due to COVID. If you have 5 or fewer employees, you can qualify for up to 10,000. 6 to 25 is 15,000. 26 to 50 would be 20,000 as well too. And again, you're going to apply on May 5th at 9 a.m. if you fall into this bucket. If you fall into this bucket, but you did apply for phase 3 and didn't receive it, you still can apply on that May 3rd as well too. So you would override this date with that date as well. So again, it's 10 million, 33% aside. Next slide. Micro businesses, this would be sole props who essentially have no employees, it's just yourself. Essentially, you can pull down the salary, you cannot pull down the salary. Depends on however you file your tax returns, it doesn't matter. But no more than 5 full-time employees as well too. Again, you can have physical location. If you're home-based, you can put your home address as well. But you would still have to be in good standing with the state and registered to do business with the state. It's very important that you have that cleared up. And then negative impacts due to COVID as well too, and the intent not to lay off. And you would apply on May 10th at 9 a.m. as well too. And then you would have 25 million set aside for that. Again, another 33% set aside. All these applications are open for a week as well. So, you know, if I was you, I definitely would apply, even if you feel like, you know, oh, I have no chance, I'm not going to do this. I think it's still going to behoove everybody's opportunity to, you know, submit the application and pursue it, because like I said, most likely there will be additional funding sources, whether it's not this or another opportunity, but it's still worth your while to get on at 9 a.m. to be able to submit these applications to have the best opportunity, just because it's a grant. And, you know, it's available. If you are one of these businesses that have been drastically impacted and can demonstrate that, you should still get on to pursue it. Next slide. And then we have all other businesses. So this would be no specific industry, but you would have the 6 to 25 employees, you would fall into the $15,000 award bucket, and then 26 to 50 full-time employees, you qualify for up to $20,000. You would be applying on May 12th at 9 a.m. as well too. But all the standard requirements would be applicable, where you would have to have physical location in New Jersey, and nonprofits, and that would be all nonprofits as well, are able to apply for this as well too. So you want to make sure you get into this window. Still in good standing with taxation and Department of Labor, and getting through the legal department questionnaires, and with a negative impact and not intend to lay off as well. Next slide. Like I said, after the pre-registration window closes, we will be posting the application again on the COVID portal.gov. So please look at that before application day. And so after you register for pre-registration, you're going to make sure you apply and look at this beforehand. And then it basically highlights all the general information as well too, associated, you know, to the business entity in regards to tax ID, and you're pulling down those last 8 quarters of your WR30 and NAICS code, and, you know, having your tax return, certain specific information like that. But the application will be fairly simple compared to pre-registration. Next slide. We're also giving you a time window of 4 weeks to cure your business registration certificate issue if there's a reason that you do not have it. Once EDA notifies you from that point, then you get 4 weeks to cure that. That's something that we've put in the other 3 phases. Some people ran into issues with that or declined for it. So we're trying to cure that so everybody can get a chance for the funding. Next slide. The set aside is essentially, you know, we're trying to hit the most distressed census tracts, and that's what opportunity zones identify as. So this is just a nice way for us to be able to really help ensure that these business owners located in those census tracts have the access to the capital that they need. And then we also do offer language help services too. We have translation services in 10 languages. If you have a business owner that may need that, they can reach out to languagehelp@njeda.com. If, for example, when we post that application, they don't understand what it means and they need help in a different language, this is where they should be reaching out to understand what that question may need, and, you know, what documentation do I need in order to answer that question as well too. We can clarify any type of thing. Next slide. There's like a black box. Okay, there we go. Next slide. That's just a demonstration of the various languages. All right, we'll just, I mean, odds are most of the people have already pre-registered that are on this panel, and it's probably gonna be a lot of questions at the end, which I totally understand, but I will just generally breeze through these pretty fast. So this is the first screen you're essentially gonna see. Next slide. This is just creating your username and password. I highly recommend once you create this, you write this down, because this portal, this application center, is our permanent application center. So any product we put out there, you're going to need your username and password. You do have the ability to change it if you forget it, but it's just easier to be able to write it down. So then this way you can have it, or maybe save it. So this way your computer recognizes it, or whatever device you're on would essentially recognize it as well too. Next slide. You're just going to create your profile, because again, like I said, this is our system. So all your information will live in the system. Next slide. Still just highlighting confirmation emails, you know, requesting to just create this setup essentially. Next slide. And then this is where you would start your pre-registration. Next slide. And then this is just general contact information. So the person that's, you know, related to the business, you know, that's going to respond to these emails, because you will have to pay attention to your inbox and respond to any kind of follow-up information. You want to make sure the person doing this is that person that is going to be on top of the application process as well too. So if you're a business owner and you get someone else to do this for you, that's completely fine, but just make sure the emails that you're putting in there, you know, someone else has that access to that email as well too. Next slide. Just your business address. So wherever you're located, if you're a home-based business, you can essentially just put your home address as well. You would identify it at that last question, ask very specifically if the entity is home-based business. Next slide. And this is just highlighting details around your organization. So it depends on whatever your business entity is, that's how you're gonna fill it out. Next slide. Again, more, you know, your EIN, everyone should basically have that information. It's gonna be throughout the application as well too. And then, you know, information related to your tax returns. So they're very important, and also your WR30s. Next slide. Again, just general information around your employees. So everyone's scenario is going to be different. So whatever applies to you is how you would essentially fill this out. Same as for your revenue, you're going to need your 2019 and 2020 information for annual revenue. Next slide. NAICS code would be dependent upon the business. If you don't know your NAICS code, you can look it up as well too. There's a link provided for you. Next slide. That looks like the same slides. So yeah, can you, next slide. Religious affiliation. So if you are a religious entity, you would identify that there. And if you're an entity engaged in lobbying efforts, you would identify there as well too. Next slide. And then just, you know, selecting which tax returns have been filed. General information. Next slide. Duplication of benefits affidavit. So this is where, you know, you want to be very mindful. These are federal dollars, just like PPP, EIDL, previous grants that we've done, all federal dollars. So you want to make sure that however you're using these proceeds that you're getting from the federal government, you're using it in different ways, right? So you don't want to demonstrate that you've used a grant for the same purpose. You always want to demonstrate you have a need, and this is why you're getting this grant, and you've used it for different uses. And if I was a small business owner, I would highly recommend you get a little notebook and jot down this information and track it. So then this way you will always have that information on hand in case there's ever a question or follow up down the road too. You can always reference to it. That would be very helpful as a business owner to really start tracking that. Next slide. This is where you would just identify the sources that you may have received previously. Next slide. Again, we're just asking the additional information to ensure there's not a duplication of benefits. Next slide. You can self-identify if you are a women business owner, veteran, disabled. If you don't want to identify, you do not have to. You can just check that box. And then they just highlight some additional information related to the business as well. Next slide. This is your legal department question. So as I was highlighting earlier, in order to qualify for these grants, you have to get through this as well, and be eligible for the grants. Next slide. So this is your certification. Again, that's where duplication of benefits is, be mindful that you're certifying that you are essentially putting the truthful information out there into this application. So just be mindful of that you will be certifying when applying for these too. So you would check this, and that you're also, applying on behalf of the business too. So make sure the person that would be filing this application is the right person as well. Next slide. And then this is where you would sign and certify and authorize. Next slide. And then this confirms your pre-registration. So this is very important. Typically want to write down the number after the, I call them the MOLAs, the MOLA. And then that way you just have it for your records just in case. Or you can just do a screenshot of this so that way you have it for your records. It also reminds you of what day you should be applying for your application. And again, application day is first come, first serve. So you want to be on there and be ready to go to be able to move forward with that. Next slide. This is an estimator. It can walk you through what your potential award would be, but for every employee, you would have to input this information. So if you have that, 49 employees, you would be inputting all this information, but it would project, what your potential award would be if you want to walk through that. Next slide. Again, that's just the estimator that would essentially tell you what you're getting. Next slide. The application will highlight some of this information. Again, it's just going to be basic info around your business, but I would highly recommend you just look at the application so you can see the actual questions beforehand and just make sure you understand what's going to be, asked of you ahead of time. Next slide. And that's it. So I'm sure we have questions. Happy to take those.
I know, Rachel, you were advancing the slides, and I know perhaps not able to answer the questions in chat as you had planned to, and maybe you're going to do that now, I'm not sure. And as I was looking at the chat, some of the questions were answered as Christina was going through the slides. As people are maybe thinking about some of the questions that they want to ask, I'm going to remind you that you can use the raised hand feature. I will call on you to do that. Rachel, do you want to go ahead and answer some of the questions that are in the chat, or
Sure.
how do you want to do that?
I tried to answer a couple. Maybe Christina wants to take this one. Registered, first of all, Vicki, I assume that the PowerPoint will be shared with the group after? Okay,
Yes,
so that's a yes.
Go ahead and send it to us.
This person, Christina, wanted to know they want to manage a vacation rental property as an individual, not an LLC, registered with the state previously when taxes were being charged on vacation rentals. Will close the state account when taxes stopped. I report the rental income and properties on my taxes. Is this person eligible?
So I'm reading the question right now. So if, you're essentially filing your tax return under your own personal tax return. So there's no business that exists, essentially, is my understanding. Can the person unmute, please? Mary McKenney.
Yes, that's right. I do run it as a vacation rental business, but it's a sole proprietorship, and I've not currently registered as a business with the state of New Jersey. I reported on my personal tax return, but it definitely was income that was impacted.
So if you're not registered to do business in the state, then it's not a registered business. That's the problem you're going to have. So if it's just a sole prop, right, you would still be registered to do business in the state.
Right. I did receive EIDL money previously, but I realized that was a federal offering, not a state.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's still a state registration. Do you have a business certificate through the state?
No, I do not.
Yeah. So I I don't see how you would. be
Yeah, I have local licensing for the operation of the business, but nothing at the state level.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to get qualified and register your business. The sole, like, you can still be a sole prop and register your business and get a business registration certificate. Sole props in the state of New Jersey, you just don't have a formation document, and that's completely fine. But you would still have to be registered to do business in the state. And it sounds, Vicky, I can send you information to pass forward because it's a 3-step process that you should, I mean, just in general, to do anything with EDA, because we are a state entity, you're going to need that. So
Yeah, as I mentioned, I did register because for a period of time, state taxes were collected, sales taxes. So I do have an account, but once that process stopped, then I did contact the state to close that account. So I do still have a number if it, but that's all I have. I'm not currently operational.
Yeah, because that's all part of it, right? It's about collecting taxes for the state, and that's, you know, how they communicate with you and making sure that you're doing your quarterly reporting and year-end reporting. I don't know if they would make you use your old information or create new information, but it would still, you would have to get that, you know, started up again, essentially, to qualify.
Thank you.
And then I'm looking, so churches.
Churches, are churches eligible to apply?
We have a religious affiliation, so it's going to depend on the scenario. There's not a one size fits all for that. So typically, there's a questionnaire that's going to be sent to you as a church, and then that's where we clarify that.
Okay. All right, I'm just asking to know if I should pre-register if churches are eligible. It's an established church.
Yeah, you should pre-register to see if you're going to be eligible. Like, but
Okay.
I can't. Yeah, it would depend on your scenario. So, but like there's going to be additional questions to follow up with that walk you through that.
Okay, thank you. And when you're pre-registering, if there's something that you leave blank because it doesn't apply to you, you don't know, is that going to jeopardize the pre-registration process?
So it depends on what that may be. If it doesn't apply to you, then no, right? But if you're leaving, you know, some type of major like answer around your employees or your EIN, then yeah.
Right,
you know,
no, that we have that.
Yeah.
That I have. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. All right, I lost track. There's the churches. Yes, you would
Do you
have
need
to
to show a loss?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So this is a grant to help you because of impact due to COVID. So you would have to show a loss, and typically it's a 25% loss, like all the other federal programs too. So 25% is your minimum. And you would still have to be a business that has been in operating since February 15th of 2020 as well too. So if you just started during the pandemic, let's say you opened up a couple months ago, because there are some business owners that have, you would not be eligible for this grant, unfortunately.
So I have a business that was impacted, but we had to move to a different location in the same area. We did receive an SBA loan from the disaster relief fund. If we use the grant, is that double dipping? Because we had to re-equip the new location and moving expenses. So I'm not sure if that would be considered double dipping.
So I mean, the double dipping. So you received an EIDL loan, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Yep. And PPP, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, PPP is very specific, right? Related to your payroll. So for this grant, depending on how you use it, it can be in the future, right? So if it helps you cover some type of rental expense or an operating expense that's coming up in the summer, that's completely fine. So that's not really double dipping, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are new businesses founded in 2021 eligible?
Yeah, I already highlighted that. So
Okay.
you would have to be open and operating before February 15th, 2020.
Right.
And pre-registration. So did you submit your pre-registration? If so, you cannot fix that. So pre-registration is a little different than application. So pre-registration, you could log back in and out of that. You didn't have to do it all in one shot. But if you've hit submitted, it's just that, it's submitted. The application, you know, once you're in there, again, it will be once you hit click submit, you can't change that information. So for this person, Maria Hughes, it looks like, it sounds like you already submitted your pre-registration, correct?
Yeah, it was just a minor thing. I didn't know if I had, you said to show different purposes for everything. And there may have been things where I said, okay, well, I used the PPP for payroll, and I also used one of the NJEDA grants for some payroll, and then I use it for other things. So that was the only thing that was correct.
Yeah, those are more just covering for the back end. We're not looking at like how it was spent, or it's just really disclosing that information. So yeah.
I had another question about the PPE. I had gotten the, the 70% discount prior. Is that open again for another round, or once you do it, it's done?
I think you can only get one bite at the apple for that. Rachel, do you know if you can get more than one? But I think it's only one.
Is this for the PPP? PPE
No,
rather?
PPE.
PPE rather. Give me 1 second. I just got that answer. Let me just dig it up.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's only one shot, just because they give you such a substantial.
Yeah, it was great. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So Rachel will follow up with that. And then it looks like we have a B&B with 20 employees. Food is included in the well, so Howard, what's your NAICS code? Teresa Stanton, is that it? Yeah. It's going to depend on what your NAICS code and how you're registered as a business. So if you fall into the restaurant, which I'm doubting you would be as a bed and breakfast, be registered starting with a 722. But I'm not sure what a NAICS code for B&B would be. My guess is you're going to be in all others. So again, if you know your NAICS code, that would determine that. But my guess is you're in the all others bucket, Day. New business.
Christina?
Yeah.
Christina, for the person who reached out, who asked about the PPE, if you are approved at any time since launch in November, you can use the program up to your approved budget without needing to reapply. And if you have any further questions on that, if you want to connect with me on, I'm the one who handles the social media. So if you want to reach out on Facebook or Twitter and send me a private message, I can get you more details on that.
What if somebody doesn't have Facebook or Twitter, Rachel?
And they can send an email to customercare@njeda.com.
Because I don't have Twitter.
All right, well, nobody's perfect. And if you want to drop your email address in the chat, I can even if you want to send it to me directly, I can follow up with you.
Yeah, or Vicky can connect us too, I'm sure. So, yeah. There is a lot of questions here. So if I received an SBA, I think I addressed Drew already. Now I'm on David Kiefer. Can I include my owner's draw salary from the business? Yeah, I mean, if you're pulling a salary in your tax returns, yeah. If you're not pulling that salary, it doesn't matter. You're still eligible, but yeah, you would still be eligible.
Christina, here's one somebody sent me a private one, and I'm not. I think this goes along the same lines as we can't reopen the pre-registration, but
yeah.
Somebody started the pre-registration process, and the section relating to the number of employees would not let her pick small business, even though the employee number agreed with the description of small business. It would only accept micro business, which they're not. So what should this person do in this instance?
Okay, so that's going to be an IT issue that we're going to need specific help with. So that's connecting with patients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Karen, if you want to drop your information in the, send me a direct message and I can connect you, or Vicky can connect us as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Remind everyone, if you'd like to use the raise hand feature instead of putting your question in the chat. Sometimes that's easier for the speakers to, just speak to you rather than try to read the chat. Happy to do that as well. Okay, here we go. I think this is, was it Iris?
Yes.
Just-
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to ask if churches are eligible, and I do the pre-registration process for our church, that would be the May 12th deadline?
So pre-registration is till April
No, the
29th?
29th,
Okay.
but when we do apply, when we fill out the full application process, it would be due before May 12th.
So it's the May 12th deadline. So that's the application day because you're all others. So you fall into that all other.
Okay, that's just what I
application.
wanted to check, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. And applications will be open for a week. I'm looking at Lexi Fox. How important are the job codes? I'm not understanding what job, like what are you talking about?
They're asking.
The NICS codes you keep talking about?
Okay, so that determines what actual day you're gonna apply. So it's pretty important.
No, I just mean
Yeah.
in terms of like, does it have to be exactly, is anybody checking that it's exactly correct in these all other type things? Because I've never been able to find an exact match for my industry. And I just, I was curious whether that was going to be an issue or not.
So I can just tell you, with a walking tour, you're gonna fall in all others. So
Okay.
for you, it's not
I'm
gonna
a
matter.
sole prop, so it's a micro business anyway.
Okay, so there you go. So yeah, it
Yeah.
wouldn't really matter for you. It's when you're a daycare or a restaurant, that's the only
Right.
day. Yeah. Yeah.
And if I was approved for the phase 3, does that mean that I'm already in the system and everything?
Exactly. Yeah, you should be. Yeah, absolutely. You should be
Okay.
in that system already, and you would have your username and password. So hopefully you wrote that down. If not, then you're gonna have to, and you can't remember it, you'll have to do the forgot my password link as well.
I'm sure I've done that plenty of times in my life. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Rachel has put her email in the chat for anyone who wants to follow up with her. Let people grab that. Okay. Let's see. Is this Gulnazi? Go ahead with your question.
So my question is basically, I'm a small restaurant owner. It's a pizzeria. Signed my lease back in November 2019 and was planning to open February of 2020. Due to the pandemic, I delayed my opening until October 2020.
Oh, we lost your sound. Okay. Go ahead.
Eligible for this fund, given that it opened, but the lease was signed in October. I opened my restaurant in October 2020. The lease was signed in November 2019 because we were.
Is she cutting in and out for anybody else? I don't know if.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So my guess
Sorry.
is it's okay.
Can you hear me better now? Sorry, yes,
Yeah,
the question, just to repeat again. So I signed the lease with my landlord in November 2019 with the plan to open in February 2020, and I own a small pizzeria. However, due to the pandemic, I delayed my opening until October 2020. Does this make my restaurant eligible or not? Thank you.
Yeah, so unfortunately, you still had to be open by the February 15th, 2020 deadline. So unfortunately, just because you signed the lease, it doesn't consider you open and operating.
Anyone else? While the folks are thinking there for maybe some last minute questions, I want to take a moment to thank all of the Cape May County Coalition of Chambers who joined with us in our hosting our NJEDA team today. with us, we have the Avalon Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Wildwood Chamber, the Middle Township Chamber, the Sea Isle City Chamber, and the Stone Harbor Chamber. So I really like to welcome and thank all the members of those organizations as well. I know that Christina and her team have been doing these presentations probably multiple times a day with lots of organizations around the state. So thank you for being with us here in Cape May County today and letting us bring everybody together. So
I just want to say, David, you asked about phase one. Since you did get phase one funding, you wouldn't fall in May 3rd. It's for anybody who didn't receive the additional, any funding under the incentives. So whatever your business may be, that's the day you're gonna look to apply.
So I'm sorry, can you just say that one more time? So I have to
So
apply,
you wouldn't apply on May 3rd.
I'd apply on the date in referencing, I own a dance studio, so I would
So
apply
all others.
May 12th.
Unless you're a micro, right? How many employees you have?
6.
Oh, all right. So you're in all others.
So that would be May 12th.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. The May 3rd was just to give people who didn't receive any kind of the funding. Additional.
Okay, because the application said phase 3, if you haven't applied for phase 3.
Yeah, I think
phase
it,
1.
I mean, we can clarify, but I think it's all other funding too. So that's the thing. But Rachel, just make sure we follow up on that one with David so he can get a solid answer. The intention was to
For
give
other people
people.
also, because I think it said phase 3 in the emails.
Did you apply for phase 3 if you got
No,
phase
only
1?
phase 1. Only phase 1. Only back in April 2020 is the only grant that I received.
Well, but you didn't apply though either, right?
I applied for phase 1 and I received money for phase 1 back in it was like April 2020.
And that was the only one?
That was the only one. I did not apply in October of 2020.
Okay. Let me just get a definite answer though for you. You know what I mean? Because I want to make sure you're getting in on the right day.
Okay, and I'll send an email to Rachel. Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Rachel, I didn't know if you put that out there to the world.
David, I just sent you my my email address.
Okay, so I'll just send you an email and you can confirm that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I mean, we want to make sure you actually get the right day. So it's important. And like I said, so Rachel put in there that customer care too. So after you get off this webinar, and if you're like, oh my God, I forgot to ask this question, or you don't believe what I'm saying, you can follow up too, I'm totally fine with that. But that's what we have a whole staff for, to really address these one-off questions, because I know a lot of people get like, well, what about this and what about that? And we just want to make sure it's easier to fix things ahead of time before it's in the system and it's actually application day as well. So we're happy to help do that. I think we got through the most part though. So again, it seems like a lot of rental people that are looking for assistance, I think. So it's really going to depend on how you registered your business. So it's very important to be a business and registered with the state if you are doing vacation rentals. Okay, hopefully I helped. Sorry.
Very informative, and it seems like a great program that's available. So again, we appreciate you bringing us all this information. It's fantastic. I do want to let everybody know about other programs that we're hosting here. Tomorrow, we have the SBA Restaurant Revitalization Grant information available at 12:30. On Thursday, we have Dr. Oliver Cook from Stockton University talking about COVID-19 and the economic impact on Cape May County. That's at 10 a.m. And then next Thursday, May 6th, Allegra Marketing Print and Mail will do a presentation on supercharging your direct mail campaign at 12:30. You can register for all of that on capemaycountychamber.com/events, and we hope to see you. Again, thank you to our co-sponsors of today's events. Christina, Rachel, Vania, thank you for joining us and this great information. And thank you to the NJEDA for these wonderful programs helping our small businesses. Look forward to seeing all of you again soon and wish everybody a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.